Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another great C3 live stream. I'm very excited to be here. I am your host, John Orlando, and joining me is an individual that is going to come on here, talk all about his part of the crowdfunder, the C3 anthology, if you will. And we're also going to talk about a lot of his other projects. Please welcome Mr. J.M. Hunter. J.M., how are you?
All right, doing okay. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Yeah.
Let's start off by talking a little bit about the start of things, so to speak. How did you get involved with C3?
They invited people to the Discord a few years ago, and around the time that CXC, not to be confused with C3 or formerly CX3, it gets a little bit messy after a while trying to sort it all, especially when you're trying to say it all and host it live. But and so I was in there, but I wasn't active until I started meeting. I saw the call for an executive member community outreach, and I kept thinking, you know what? I know a little bit of stuff. I know people from all circles. I've been in the comic scene actively since 2002, from one coast to the other coast and in between. So I figured that let me see what they need, and I like trying to root for the little guy or little people, so to speak. The ones that aren't in the bigger cliques or the well-known circles, and I like being able to build community. I'm all about community building and comics and art and stuff like that. So I started checking it out, and I started thinking that maybe there is, potential here to help out and just kind of use a little bit of experience that I might have, but also learn from people that are much, much younger than I am, so.
That's, I think, the greatest thing about C3 is the environment that it creates for artists, whether you're an independent artist that's been doing it 10 years or you're a newcomer to the field. I think that's the biggest selling point that I tell folks about when I talk about C3.
Exactly. I say the same thing when I can't help but to recruit. It's not so much as about actively trying to recruit to get numbers or any type of quota. It's more like just engaging and realizing that, hey, you're not alone when people start voicing like, oh, I wish I was around people. And they say that around shows. When we're at Zine Fest or comic shows, they start talking about how they wish there was more people to hang out with. I'm like, actually, there is, and, there's projects, there's if you have questions about how to do something, there's resources as well as, in the meetups. So there is a little bit of everything, I'd say, for everyone for the most part. If you're looking for a community of like-minded creators or even people that are different from yourself, but might have something to share with you that you in turn with them.
Well, let's talk about the anthology. C stands for is the title of the anthology that C3 is putting together. Can we talk, Jam, about your contribution or contributions to the anthology?
Well, mine are a little bit of work in progress, but I had a large dotted journal, big, huge book, and I must have went through like those 2 pages of ideas of prompts. C stands for this, C stands for that. And so I just went through this exhaustive list and this really exhaustive plan over a complicated plan. And so that's just kind of how I work, is like I have to panic and freak out and do and plan for everything, and then be the anti-Batman and just be more like Red Hood or Nightwing and just jump for it instead. So I settled on C is for character design, and then I actually pivoted from that to C is for character creation, because I didn't want to do a strictly instructional tutorial, even though at the time I did. Now it's gotten to a place where it's more meta and a little bit more comedic, as well as a little more transformative, I hope, by the time the reader's done with the 4 pages. So
I laughed at the idea that you have to panic in order to make sure that your game plan is ready to go. Do colleagues or maybe even your own family go, oh gosh, he's panicking again, he must be
well, that's one of my that's like my bat signal, basically. You know what I mean? So it's like he's going to panic and do all this stuff, and then he's going to abandon it anyways, and then just go off the cuff or whatever it is. Yeah. That's why the ADHD is worked into some of my projects, literally, and it stands for a damn hard day. That's the acronym because I tend to get in my own way a lot. So yeah.
But at least you're self-aware of it.
Oh yeah.
In all honesty, I gotta give you credit for that, because I have some feeling that there's people just like you who must have an excuse or blame it on somebody else. At least you own up on it. So
yeah, self-aware. I've got a lot of experience with being self-aware. I was single for a very long time, so I had nothing else to do but become self-aware. So yeah. So and then now that I have teenagers, they ignore me anyways. I'm just more self-aware as as we speak. So.
Well, let me ask you, why did you decide to participate in the anthology?
Well, somewhat out of sense of duty, just
Okay.
like, somewhat. And then anthologies is how I got my start, like actively creating comics. I created comics when I was a kid, and I created superheroes and stuff, and I teamed up with other friends to do that. But when you start talking about actually like publishing work and art and comics and actually coming together with a book, a physical property of sorts, it was anthologies was my first set of comics, going back to 2002, doing what is called APAs, which is like Amateur Press Association. And you would basically get together with a bunch of people way before Kickstarter ever existed, and you would all do your pages, photocopy them, and send them into one person with $10, and they would collate them together, bind them, and then send everyone back a copy of the book. That's how you did it, from the message boards, from just the old school way of doing communities before Discord. That's probably why I like Discord, because it reminds me a little bit of that message board communities with a little bit of Yahoo and AOL chat room, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I mean, it's a good way of fostering community and just having a dialogue. But yeah, anthologies. And then I started getting into ones that were actually created by vanity publishers, where they actually, because of print on demand became a thing, where you can actually, like, the gates were broken open to where anyone can print their own book. And so that became a thing in around 2003 to 2004-ish. And so I was a part of those early ones that came from like the TCJ, which is the Fantagraphics message board back in the day. There was a who's who in the Wild West of the internet back in the days of all these people that come to the crossroads now. Even, some of these people I've known for 20 plus years. And that's when I had hair. I always say this joke. It's a cringy dad bod joke, but it's true. I had hair. I was skinny back then, and I was in California, and 3 or 4 states later, I'm here in Ohio, still running into these people. And I may have already either published them myself or was already in an anthology. So eventually I took over an anthology series called BAM, and I called it BAM 2, as in the sequel. And the BAM stood for Big Ass Mini Comic. And it was like a 600-page, thick tome with the who's who of creators that were in it. Tim Seeley was in it. Jeffrey Brown, Andy Hartson, the guy who worked on Back to the Future Telltale games. There's a lot of people in it. Even people that I kind of shamefully forgot, and then I see them on Facebook and in the groups. I'm like, oh, that art is awesome. That's nice. I'm like, oh, I want to become friends with them. Oops, I actually published them, but it was just over 60 creators and brain fog, and I forgot, or I didn't realize it. So yeah, so that happened around, and then Kickstarter kicked in, and now that's the way to do your own comics. And then Crowdfundr, which is a good alternative as well to crowdfunding. Anyways, that was a long answer. I do that a lot.
No. Hey, we just love an answer. That's it. Long or short, it doesn't matter. We just want an answer here. And my next question, though, that I have for you is, you've mentioned you were in California. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, you were born and bred in California, correct? Born in
San Bernardino.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
San Bernardino.
How'd you end up here in Columbus?
So back in the MySpace days, that was it used to be shamed for it back then, but now it's like, okay, you might meet your significant other online. That's a very much possibility nowadays, right? But back in the days when MySpace was around, a coworker I used to work for on military bases with childcare and youth and teen. And so the one lady that worked in the infant room said, oh, I have a friend. And she saw my MySpace, which is a very think I was flipping off the camera, drinking a beer, so I lived in both worlds, I guess, right? So the dualities of things. so and so we just started talking as a long distance relationship, and someone had to close the gap. So I came out to Florida where she was stationed, her parents were stationed. And our first date was X-Men 3,
Oh.
So you think with watching that movie that the marriage would be like in trouble because that movie wasn't that good. But but anyways, we're still here. She still kept me so far,
Hey.
So 17, 18 years later, so I'm still annoying them with all my comics and everything. So, but anyways, and then Illinois, I gotta find a way to wrap these up, these answers. But Illinois is where she was from. We lived in there. I did not like Illinois, but I would drive 6.5 hours to come to Columbus to do Space, to do SoulCon and CXC, to these comic shows, and you could throw a pebble and you'll hit a cartoonist out here. And I was like, this is awesome, And they had a lot of pizza options out here compared to Illinois where I was at. Like in Peoria, I was like, there's not a lot of good food out here. You know what I mean? So at least I could fake like one or two streets out here in Columbus might look like a street in Garden Grove or Santa Ana, California. So I was like, okay, I could fake it. I can't afford to live in Cali, but I could fake it. And I could at least be active in the comics and cartooning communities. And they had the Billy Ireland here. It's like they have a museum with comics. How do I not want to live here? So I finally made the change.
How'd you convince your wife to?
Well, because we're both teachers, but she's been in teaching for over 16 years, and that's said, hey, look what they pay teachers here versus what you're getting paid now, and so I think she was ready for a change as well.
Okay,
because
good.
Peoria was mining was Caterpillar's the big mining company, and they're outsourcing their stuff like to Bucyrus and everywhere else, and so things are getting, it's kind of dour, it's one of those. It's the usual story, of places shutting down or places not really taking care of their people as much like it used to.
Yeah.
And so, that's how we ended up here.
Okay. All right. Well, let's we'll talk some more about C stands for in the anthology. But at this point, I feel like we need to let folks know just what the heck we're talking about. We're talking about the Crowdfundr campaign. As I mentioned, C stands for Anthology. JM's got some work in it. You've heard me talk to Kelsey Crawford and Robert Masnat and a bunch of folks about this project. And let me just run it down for you folks. It's a different type of tier system than you're used to maybe for Indiegogo or Kickstarter, where no matter how much money is raised, every person that contributes to the anthology is going to get $5. That's the page rate. If we get up to 950, then everyone's going to get $10. And Jayon, from what I understand, we're $129 away from reaching that mark. So that's awesome. That's great.
We can close that gap.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I challenged folks on the last one, the last conversation I had here with the live stream. I'm like, by the end of the month, we need to be way over 1550. We need to be way over.
And if you don't pledge, I'm going to come to your work and wear this on my forehead and embarrass people if you don't start pledging. No. I have the mutant power of sticking things to my forehead. I don't know why, just stuff just sticks to it. So don't make me treat you like my first graders and have to go and put things on my forehead to get your attention and get your involvement and your engagement.
Okay. That's right. So as I mentioned, 1550, if we raise that amount, then everybody gets the page rate of $15, which we're about $792 away from that. And then anything over 1550 is, of course, $20. And all of this stuff, all this money is going to go back to the local independent comic book creator. So no one's getting rich on this. This is no Ponzi scheme or anything like that. All the money's going back to the artist for tabling fees, for workshops, for supplies, through all types of stuff.
Set of pens, art supplies, or a meal at Brewdog when we meet up once a month, the first Sunday of every month. We might get, be able to get a drink, a beverage, and get a burger. And while we're drawing and jamming and inviting you to come out and hang with us. So,
hey, like I said to another guest of my podcast, everything takes a little bit of cash at the beginning to get you moving. That's just how life is, man. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how it is.
Yeah. And it's a celebration of community. The whole effort of this crowdfunder is about local people coming together and creating and telling stories and doing something that they enjoy, that they've been passionate about all their lives, and that want to share that passion with you. So, I mean, if you can't get behind that, then I don't know. You got to switch the channel, I guess.
Well, don't do that yet. Wait.
Not yet.
Finish out this live stream, and then you can change the channel.
Yeah, definitely. This is important. I'm on this show. No, I'm kidding.
Well, JM, you mentioned CXC and you mentioned Space, which are two gigantic celebrations of independent comic book creations and independent illustration and cartoons and whatnot. Can you just tell the folks a little bit about your experiences at CXC and Space?
Well, Space, I covered Space as a journalist. I used to write for the Alhausers, and my focus was on independent comics. So I was an independent creator, and I wanted to talk to other people about their independent comics and their crowdfunders and help do basically what we're doing here, talking about their projects and get the word out. And so I covered like a whole group of people that were exhibiting at Space one year. And I became enthralled. I was like, I got to get out there. I got to experience this for myself. And then I got to go the next year as an exhibitor. And I was just like, I was overwhelmed in a most pleasant capacity of being around so many comic creators that were DIY or just doing it themselves. Like if you've ever like walked into a room and then just kind of had a feeling like, wait a minute, I think I found my people. That's what it was like to go to these two shows, especially SoulCon. That was at the time partnered with CXC. It was a celebration of what we do, different walks of life and different approaches to creating something, showing you that there's, that's the great thing is you can walk through 10 tables and you'll have 10 different voices, 10 different ways of creativity that's been expressed by these people. So it just made me want to be around it more often and as much as I could. And Bob Corby, who runs Space, has been like, I call him the Bob Father because he's been such a mentor and patient with me, someone like me, So, and that's why I'm always in his anthologies as well. When I like someone or a group of people, it's hard for me to say no to being involved in some capacity. Even when I try to just like focus on something else, I always get pulled back. It's like that tractor beam because it's just part of it starts becoming part of your DNA, So, yeah. And CXC, it's like CXC is just it gets better every year. CXC does, as far as the amount of different types of programming that they do. Even if you don't become even if you're not an artist exhibiting at CXC, there's the programming and panels and everything is so robust that it's almost like the equivalent, in my opinion, of going to San Diego Comic-Con, but on an independent nature, where in Columbus, where you can go to panels, discussions, after parties, engagement. There's just constantly Billy Ireland. There's so much to do during that week, and that you will not see it all. And get this, you don't have to worry about breathing, the air, the stale air, like in San Diego on the floor. As much as I love San Diego, you cannot move on the floor in San Diego Comic-Con without, it's hot and you're like this, and you are going to get the big C. You know what I mean? So yeah, at least you have breathing room when you go to CXC in Space. So.
Which, as you saw from just a few moments ago, it is September 26th through the 29th this year. And have you ever like geeked out for a guest that CXC brought in?
So many times. The second CXC, this is how I geeked out. Sergio Aragones for Blue and Stan Sakai, Usagi Yojimbo, like legends, masters, right? Senseis, as I call them. We're both tabling together, but Sergio had to go do a discussion, a demonstration, and they needed art supplies. They didn't have like art paper for him to draw and all that. And me, I always bring everything, like art supplies and all that. So Jeff Smith's wife, Vijay, came over and asked me if I had this, and I was like, oh yeah, here. It's like supplying like art supplies or supplying stuff to one of the greats. And then also Jeff Smith asking, talking to you and engaging. And then Kyle Baker was here one year. I mean, yeah, some of these creators that I could looked up to have become friends or mentors to me as well. I got my MFA in comics because of meeting somebody at CXC, meeting a couple people, as well as Frederick Aldama, who used to be at SoulCon and OSU in the laser department. So Ohio and Columbus and the comics community has given me quite a bit, and it's hard for me not to not to want to give back or not to want to be involved and give it to the next generation, younger people that are coming up and everything. That's also the answer to your question about C3 and why it was so important to be involved in C3, because you can find a way to give back or to be engaged with the next set of artists or creators or people who are just discovering their voice now or wanting to discover their voice. So,
well, you just saw our producer Sydney mention that she is very much excited to see Brian Lee O'Malley this year at CXC.
Yeah, that last Scott Pilgrim series was epic. It was so good, So, yeah.
But I'm going to circle back to something you mentioned real quick. Why do you think Columbus, and why do you think Ohio? We'll make it even bigger than just Columbus. Why do you think Ohio is so good cultivating this indie talent?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You have the 3 C's, the big 3 cities, right? And each one of them has a pocket, a plethora of talent and creativity, right? Whether it was not just with comics and zines, but they have the indie culture, and then they have a bunch of fine artists and artists, and they always see. And there's a lot. How many celebrities have come from Ohio? I mean, I don't know if it's just I don't know what the answer is. There's something that people come here for, gravitate. Now I won't sit there and blow smoke up, people's nose and say, it's all roses. No, there's some things that still need work. That's still, but if it's not work worth doing and cultivating, then what else is there, right? I mean, if you want to be good work, it's worth fighting the good fight. So, yeah, I don't know why that is. I just know that somehow, some way, I was compelled to come here, and how long I stay here, I don't know. I've got kids that might be going to college here soon, within a year, so I might be here for a while. So if I'm going to be here, then I need to be a part of building something and being a part of making it better, and making sure that comics, which is one of the ultimate forms of expression, it's like no other medium. No other medium can do what comics does. And it's comics is more than just cartoons and funny pages. You know what I mean? Any type of story, any type of voice could be expressed through comics, through sequential art. So getting that word out and letting people know that it's available to them as well to produce and do themselves, on a micro level and a macro level, is really important. So I don't know, something about the 3 C's that just keep bringing people here. And then you got Michigan right there. So it's not the weather, though. That's definitely not the weather. I don't know.
Well, look, the weather, the adage in the stereotype joke is, just wait 5 minutes. But that's true. That
just happened.
Yeah. I mean, it is true in Ohio.
Yeah.
By the way, Sydney says that Ohio has produced 7 presidents and 25 astronauts.
There we go.
So there you go.
So yeah, so it's got its own little spot in the universe, So
there you have it. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about a couple of your projects. Okay. All right. First of all, you are involved in a project that is currently going on right now. Excuse me, the Kickstarter is currently going on right now, and it is a project called the Universal Flaws of Robotics. So, can you share a little bit about what your role is with that project, and just a little bit about the project in general?
Yeah, so I had the honor, of being able to do the cover for it, which was I say yes to so many anthologies that I get overwhelmed really easily, because but this time I was like, okay, you know what, I'm interested in doing the cover if you'll have me, and I love the idea of robotics or robots as a theme. I can't draw straight lines at all, and I've been doing art for 40 plus years, but just the idea of tackling robots symmetry and then bringing a humanist element to it, and seeing what other artists do. So the robotics anthology is everyone's interpretation of what that means, that title means to them. And you'll find that even though the word robotics is in it, or robots themed, that there's a very, very, very strong sense of humanity in these stories, and exploring what that is, especially in these times when you have things like AI that are replacing human beings' roles and stuff like that. What does that future say of that? I said, hey, if I can get that cover. My first concept for the cover, I'll be straight with you, I just wanted to do a dance off with a kaiju Godzilla-like character and a big, huge robot mecha, and I just wanted them to be doing a dance off. That was my pitch for the cover. And then the tonality of the book went some other direction. And so I was like, okay, I think I can still do something. And so I went and knocked out the cover, had a really fun experience. I had a leveled up with some of my artwork, unlocked some areas that used to be like blocked to me. So anytime you have a piece or something that just levels up or you access it, I mean, like, yeah. So I've not done that before, and to be able to do that, I finally conquered this one YouTube tutorial. 8 years later, it's pretty cool. So, if you look, you may not be able to see it here, but if you pledge to the campaign and you get some of these perks, like the poster that doesn't have the logo on it, but just the artwork, you might be able to see some of the little Easter eggs I put in there. There's a lot of Easter eggs in here. So, especially in the central skull.
Well, this is an awesome cover.
Thank you.
It is both. It's kind of both for me, both beautiful and also slightly disturbing. Which is to me, if I was creating this, I would take that as like, well, that's what I was going for, and I assume that's what you're going for as well.
Yeah, well, I have a mean the heavy left hand of doom, as I call it. I'm left-handed, and I never learned how to hold a pencil right, so I have a very, very heavy hand. So whenever I try to do something elegant or something a little bit more light or minimal, it's very difficult for me to do that. So thankfully, with this piece, I was like, okay, I can cut loose. And so, when I can cut loose, it's just like, it's all about energy, and it tends to come out a little bit more aggressive than I intend a lot of times, but that's just me. That's just whatever coming out, so, it's almost like a workout. It's almost like me just doing a sprint real quick and having that conversation, getting to the finish line, but as well as just exploring what's happening. And, it's weird though, because while it looks aggressive and maybe intense, the artwork, it's so calming though. I never know serenity unless I'm in that flow state and things are going like that. And so I had some of this with that cover, and normally I don't get that unless I'm painting. So.
Well, it's a gorgeous cover.
Well, thank you.
Excellent. And kind of piggybacking off of this discussion here.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a Kickstarter campaign. I know you've mentioned Kickstarter. I'm assuming that you're a big fan of it, because I have found that at most of the creators I've talked to, there's like, I either love it or I hate it. There's not a lot of middle ground in there. So where do you stand when it comes to using Kickstarter?
I've only launched my own Kickstarter one time, and it was for a thing that they no longer do, but they used to do this. They might have a different version of it now, but in the month of November, they used to do this thing called commissions. And so the point of it for Kickstarter was to do a small crowdfunder where you would do a commission. You would make something, and then people could bid on that. So it was a great starter way of learning how to do Kickstarter, because I wanted to learn, how do you run a Kickstarter? I don't know, so I made my goal. I only did like 600 something, but I did commissions, and it was really cool experience. Now I've been a part of a lot of Kickstarters because I do a lot of anthologies. I contribute to a lot of different, other people's, projects and stuff like that. So, or I'll do pinups and I end up in the Kickstarter somehow that way. So I can see how people have a love-hate relationship with it, because especially like all things, once something has been out for a while, either some people find a way to, or maybe the system becomes more geared towards,
they kind of manipulate it,
or tweak it or utilize it to where it's like people that might feel like their creation is just being lost in the shuffle, or maybe it targets a different niche that's more exploitive than but at the same time, it's still, this is an opportunity for you to get a project, to get eyes on it, to get it funded, where otherwise you'd have to work 80 hours a week or something trying to do it, right? 40 hours at your day job, 20 to 40 trying to stress out about putting a project together, and trying to, what do you want to do? Do you want to spend 20 hours a week working on a crowdfunder promoting that, or do you want to sit there and go out there and try and talk to people at a bank and try and find money that way, or scrape money, or go work a part-time job to get money to go fund your project. Like that's how do we used to do it? How do we used to fund a print run? You know what I mean? Not everyone has, not everyone has like equitable access to money or funds, even no matter how pure or how soulful your creation might be. You know what I mean? So there's definitely a good thing. But I do like the fact that there's Crowdfundr and there's other ones that are popping up, Indiegogo. I like that there's options, because if there's only one player in the market, that's never a good thing.
Nope.
If we're going to have to participate in capitalism, then we need more options and more choices, so that way we can things are a little bit more of an even playing field. Or if you don't like the way things are run at Kickstarter, you can go over to Crowdfundr or some other place. But with that being said, I still love the regular Xerox print zine DIY, getting together with like Carl Lucas, who you're going to interview, and then we're sitting there, like doing comics and trying to get them ready for the next show. Just last week or week before, I think all of us are burnt out now, because we were all 5 of us were like inside the coffee shop trying to get our C3 anthology comics drawn and done and everything like that. So typical artists, like, oh, what, oh, it's almost time. Okay, I'll start now.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about 2 other projects real quick.
Sure.
One of which just got released in digital format, and that is the project called Rantology.
Oh, yeah, Rantology. Yep.
Can you explain a little bit to the viewers and the listeners what that project was all about?
So Rantology was my thesis for my MFA in comics degree, and it's kind of like we've been talking about anthologies. That's been kind of thematic through this discussion.
Yes.
And through my history, so it was almost like it made total sense to, one, do an anthology for my final project, because it's like a love letter to the thing that I loved about comics. Even when I went to Comic-Con in San Diego, I would buy anthologies because I get to have several different creators or several different stories in one thing, and discover different things, different voices, different people that I might follow their career later on and become a regular fan or whatever. So also, it was also my safety blanket, or my safety net, excuse me. I'm getting my stuff mixed up. I do that. Safety blanket. I don't think I have one of those yet anymore. Safety net. Maybe it is a blanket. Who knows? But I know how I am, and I know how a MFA degree can be intense, and doing 11-hour days back in California when we were there, having to do comics, and then go home and do homework at night, and then the pandemic hit, and you're now doing everything online. So I was like, what if I just did small stories or small snippets and samples as an anthology? That way I would still put out something, and you get to see the variety of styles and stories that I work with, because I work in almost all mediums, as well as like, I'm going to make sure I get to the finish line, because I'm not trying to do that big, ambitious, epic Lord of the Rings tale that I'll never have time to finish. You know what I mean? So that's the point of doing the anthology. And as you can hear, I tend to ramble, but when I'm really not liking something, I do the opposite, and I rant. And the people have coined this the Hunter rant. And sometimes, I get in my feelings and I start going and talking. So I was like, well, how best to do this? Let's do it through like a zine / graffiti style / anthology. So Rantology is a collection of memoir comics, as well as political, social commentary. Getting on my soapbox, but all lots of visceral color palettes and different styles of artwork are in it. There's also folklore and mythology. It's a bit of a mixture and mixed media type of approach to all the different types of stories that I find myself doing. And then it's part of number 0 in a series of what I call the rant series, where each version will be thematic. So the next one's going to be Rantham, and that will be more. And then the one after that will be Ranasy. So basically, then there'll be like more of a sci-fi fantasy element to that one. So I can play in different sandboxes, but yet through the lens of maybe some of that commentary that I'm known to, ramble on about. So.
Well, the last project here, real quick, I wanted to talk about, because I thought it was really, really darn creative. Just going to say it that way. Was November? I can hardly even say it.
Yeah,
November.
November. Yeah. So
what was the catalyst for creating that particular project, which was a bunch of different coloring pages, if I recall?
yeah, and there's also a book, a color zine called "You Don't Know Me." You know, so besides doing as many gnome puns as I can because I'm a cringy Gen Xer, I I did a series of gnome sketches, and it was just nice to get back to pencil and rendering, over rendering stuff and sketching, like my natural state of art creating that I've had that might be considered dated or the 90s style or grunge style, whatever these kids these days call me, or call it. But I hear it's coming back, as they wear their Nirvana shirt. I'm just messing around. But anyways, yeah. So I love fairies and fae and like the mythology like Tolkien, but Brian Froud is the concept artist behind Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, a who's who of people would get these tattoos back in the early millennium. Like all these different fairy tattoos that you see are probably taken from Brian Froud's artwork. And there was this big book of fairies, and he spells it Fairies, which is like nice rendered drawings. And I wanted to tell my own spin on different folklore and fairies and stuff like that. So the first one was going to be gnomes, because it's like, oh, I can draw bearded, gnarly looking dudes. I am one, you know what I mean? So I drew those, and then like November, I wanted a theme, because at the time I was trying to focus on like having like a monthly content type of deal, like like you have your October challenges that happen all the time, and I just love autumn and fall. It's one of my favorite, most fertile creative periods. For everyone else, their budgets are ending and they're getting their fiscal stuff figured out. For me, I'm like, oh, now I'm blooming with so many ideas, and it's pumpkin spice time, and I'm one of those people that like pumpkin spice. So I want to sit here and I love the colors. I want to draw the stuff. I want to just get into drawing gnarled trees and stuff like that, and yeah. So anyways, that's probably why I'm pre-diabetic, because of the Halloween candy. That was a tangent. I do that too. Yeah. So anyways, I don't know if I answered your question. This is a part of the interview where I start to spin off the rails.
So. No. You gave an answer there.
Okay.
It's something that you enjoy, and I take it that when you said you wanted to get back to pencils, that it was a way to kind of get you back into that discipline.
Yeah. It was just to loosen up too. It was like, hey, I can grab a number 2 pencil and I can use the side of it, and I can sit here and sketch and play with this texture of the paper and stuff like that. But as true to Hunter fashion, I started coming up with this mythology and this folklore and expanding the world and the story. And so it got so far away from me to where I only was able to make stickers and make the coloring sheet sets. Like what you see in that coloring set is only like a handful. I did like a whole bunch of more gnomes that people haven't really seen, at least not in a commercial capacity yet. So, but You Don't Know Me has more of those in there. So, yeah.
All right. Well, JM, before we wrap up, hey, it's National Lefty Day, says Tom Williams.
Hey, Tom, and I am a lefty. Man? Hey, Tom. Tom's a really good artist. Another friend that, been around. We talked about Columbus art cartoonist. That's Tom right there. He's been around forever. So you'll see him at the shows. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about real quickly before we get to wrapping things up with your social media stuff and whatnot. Let's just remind folks real quick again, the crowdfunder campaign, C stands for Anthology. We've got to hit those tiers. As of the other day, as of today, today is the 13th. I keep thinking today is the 14th. Anyways, the 13th, we are $192 away from raising the artist page rate to $10. We hit that 950 mark. All the page rates are going to go to $10. If we get to 1550, 1,550, it gets bumped up to $15. Anything over that, it's now $20 per page rate. And as I said before, all the funds are going to go to people like JM, to people who are independent creators, who are here in the area that need maybe some help with tabling fees or supplies or workshops or whatever. Donate, folks. Donate. Let's make this happen. Let's get to $129 by let's do it by tomorrow. I keep thinking today is the 14th. There's no reason why by this time tomorrow we can't get $129 into that account, right?
Yep. Tomorrow's hump day. Let's do it.
So, yeah, exactly. So
let's get over that hump.
Well done, sir. Well done. Well, JM, let's talk real quickly about where folks can find you on the internet. We're talking about website, social media, anything along those lines.
All right. So if I was a proper content person, I'd know this, but I think it's JM_INDY for Indy underscore Hunter Instagram. I'd rather you come check and talk. You can talk with me and anyone else. Come to the C3 Discord. Come check us out. We're all there. You know, I mean, if you have questions about your own story and things that you're wanting to do, I mean, there's like 100+ cartoonists sitting right there locally in the Discord that you can sit there and ask questions about and check. You can actually get behind the scenes looks and pages for the anthology as well, because we share our work there all the time. And we have a book club. You're going to talk to Carl Lucas. I don't want to jump on Carl's toes, but we have a book club. So we're actually reading graphic novels and sharing and all that. And that's open to anyone that wants to join up and everything like that. So yeah, so that's, if you want to read, that's a good way to hang out with us too. So
cool.
Yeah. So I didn't answer your question. I didn't tell people where they can find me other than going to the
C3
they
Discord.
Did.
Sydney helped us out too. Sydney helped us out with,
there we go. Thank you,
stuff. There's the Comic Reading Club on Fable, and there you go. JM, there you go. You were right.
Yeah.
You said you didn't think you were going to be correct, but I think you were correct. That Indy. Anyways.
I think it's JM. It's a little bit backwards. I think it's JM.
Is it backwards?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
It's all right. I don't have any executive function, so I don't expect anyone else to have it either on social media to find me, so that's fine.
By the way, Kelsey Crawford, hello. How you doing as well? All right, with that, JM, thank you very, very much for sitting down and chatting about C3 and the anthology and your stuff as well. It's been fun. And with that, I will chat at each and every one of you later.